thank you everybody for joining in. This is of course this has to be like the biggest Twitter space AMA on Twitter, if you ask me. Two titans, of course, in the crypto space. You got Treasure and Arbitrum. Before we do get into things, I think we should obviously give some introductions. My name is Hunter. I am, of course, from Offchain Labs, Arbitrum, and I'm the community manager here. We have Size Chat from our side, who's leading the NFT and gaming efforts over here at Offchain Labs, Arbitrum. And, of course, AJ Warner, who previously was speaking here. I'll invite him again, who is the Director of Partnerships and Strategy here at Arbitrum as well.
By the way, I think John just requested to speak.
Yep, just invited him on.
Oh, great.
New room isn't John. Yeah, you guys can go ahead. John, you should be on now.
Oh, hey, I'm John. I co-founded Treasure with Utah, and I work in growth at Osmosis is my other job in crypto.
Hey, I'm Utah. As John mentioned, I co-founded Treasure. I helped with a lot of the initial Solidity contracts, and now I work on the Trove marketplace.
Hey, it's Scarp. I joined within the first week of Treasure. I kind of look after all things kind of like token economics, kind of liquidity, bit of partnerships. And yeah, prior to this kind of life, was kind of in corporate strategy and M&A.
Hey, I'm Ed. I'm the product lead for Treasure, so basically looking after like Bridgeworld.
I should also go ahead.
Oh, yes, sir. Yeah, I'm Sisu. I help run the Twitter and do ecosystem coordination stuff with the ever-expanding Treasure ecosystem. Next up, Tay, because no one's going in order.
Sorry, I wasn't too sure. I'm Tay. I'm sort of looking after the art side of things for Treasure and Bridgeworld. Joined maybe right after the migration chaos was over. The little
no pressure, eh?
ecosystem designs earlier, and then just doing art now.
All right. Did all you guys go? I feel like there's so many people here. I can't even keep track.
All right, no one else from the team going, so I'll go. I'm T1 Dev, Solidity developer on the team. Relatively new compared to all these old farts, but yeah.
He's quickly become the team lap.
I love it. I already love it. I mean, the enthusiasm that he came in with was just nuts.
I'm Neil. I guess I'm the last one to go. I work on marketplace, front end, and the back end, powered by the graph. And I see JC's down there. I don't know if he'll request to speak, but he's my right-hand man.
Awesome. You want me to bring JC on?
Yeah, he might be laying in bed still, but he'll still talk.
There you go. I should also mention, by the way, that we have the CEO and co-founder of Arbitrum acting as the host. He's actually on the Arbitrum account, so I just had to make sure to give him a shout out there.
Hey everyone, great to be here. Really excited. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Wow.
All right, I'm gonna try to add JC. Hopefully it works. But let's kind of kick off the conversation. So obviously Treasure has been the biggest talk of the town when it comes to the entire Arbitrum ecosystem and even far beyond that. And we're going to get into a lot of the details. But for maybe viewers who aren't yet maybe too familiar with Treasure, the Treasure DAO, the Treasureverse, etc., can you guys give us like a high-level overview of what the Treasure DAO is and what it consists of?
Sure, yeah. So we started as a loot derivative in September And for anyone who's not familiar with that project, each NFT was a card with 8 words on it that were randomly generated for different attributes. And it was sort of an invitation to other builders for building the game around it. So sort of this bottom-up design that we found really interesting because it was just purely a mechanism more than anything else. And in retrospect, now several months later, it was the first time I think that people in NFTs had to think about what it would be like for decentralization to, well, like what does decentralization look like in NFTs? Particularly, we're not just talking about marketplaces here, we're talking about a community trying to create things together. And clearly, then the project didn't take off because it maybe was too early for that conversation, but it is historic in that it was the first one to bring that up. So most of us come from a DeFi background, or at least I come from a DeFi background, and Garp does as well in Utah. And I were working on some projects. We thought it'd be interesting to take this basic concept of a mechanism that doesn't have a game and just do it with currencies. And the idea being, it's really going to be economic activity that turns these metaverses into places where, where, like, not only that can create a P2E economy, but also with resources themselves and currencies, particularly fungible currencies like Magic, are the social coordination tools where communities can make decisions about what they actually are as an organization, empower themselves through investing in certain things and with grants. And so at the time when we launched Magic, there was and A Gold and Woot and all these projects that just had really vibrant communities, but they lacked any way for the DAO to form around it. So the idea was to create the Magic token, which was a fungible metaverse currency that was supposed to function as a cross metaverse currency to bring all these communities together. And we think we did a good job of identifying communities that lacked the mechanisms by which they could build bigger things together. So it started off, just we didn't have any plans of where it would go. These treasures were NFTs. Magic was this fungible currency between them, but it ended up being a good means for things to start coalescing and building. And then, now it feels sort of kind of like a train that's powering decentralization for lots of different builders. We have our own marketplace for metaverse specific projects. We're opening a generalized one that T1 and Utah are building, working with DeFi builders to build lending projects on top of it. But yeah, anyway, so our basic thesis was that the metaverse needs its own native money. We made one thinking it would be it would catalyze the metaverse, and so far that thesis seems to be panning out.
Yeah, and it's obviously panning out in a really awesome way. Do you think it would make sense to kind of describe, the Treasureverse as kind of this, well-crafted blank slate for any kind of project that does want to integrate itself? If it kind of fits a certain criteria for it to kind of plug in and almost play. I think that's one thing that I've noticed a lot throughout the past couple of months. You guys have really been killing it.
Yeah, I think that's a fair description of, what we're trying to make building blocks in the same way Luke did, but there is no building block more fundamental than an economic resource, like financial primitives that other people can quickly spin up. And we're also trying to do that with this this DAO, and we're building out sub DAOs that hopefully we're going to get to announce more soon, of creating the human version of composable code on an organizational level, a creative level, just trying to use the DAO as a means now for people who can just work together asynchronously to build things extremely quickly.
Yeah, we've also really been focusing on building, I guess we're shifting our part of our focus towards building out really strong infrastructure so that anyone who does choose to come build with Treasure or on top of Magic and Treasures can do so pretty easily and just plug into a number of different hooks, right?
No, exactly, and it's. I think it's really funny because I think when I first seen Treasure, and obviously kind of familiarize myself with Magic the token. I couldn't really fully grasp what like Treasure was, but I think like once you're able to kind of wrap your head around the whole idea of what Treasure is supposed to be, which in many ways to me is kind of like how people kind of talk about DeFi Legos. I'd almost call it like NFT Legos, where you can just you can kind of build on top of it like infinitely. It's truly powerful, really.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I mean, we just want to be like a locomotive for decentralization that's continuing to pick up and just organize all these things, because there had not been prior to 2022 and late 2021 any attempts at decentralization in NFTs beyond like NFTX and a couple other projects. It had to be built out, and it needed like a financialization to like power and to power all of this building and make it actually viable, which is what Magic does.
And I think what's really interesting too is that there's like, as you mentioned, right? It can be pretty difficult to wrap your head around, but I think through like our other projects, like Smolverse, especially, right, or the other projects that we are partnering with now, I think people will find ways to get into the Treasure Magic ecosystem, right? Like there's many like avenues to onboarding. Like even my dad, who's like not at all a crypto person, like really jumped on to like the small brains like narrative, and now he's like a magic bull.
Oh no, likewise, man. It's funny. I made a video quite a while ago about Magic. Not Magic, on small brains, which we're going to talk about soon as well. And it's funny. It's like it's like anything in this space, or anything in general, right? It's like you look you look crazy, kind of talking about something when no one else is, but then once it really catches on and people start to understand it, it's like you're like that one genius in the room,
I think it's funny. I saw a Roger Ver post the other day, and the stuff he was saying, I was like, my God, I'm like saying the same thing Roger Ver is or whatever. But in a way, I think he's right. Those Bitcoiners, that they were right that like there is no tool like a fungible currency in terms of organizing groups. There's just no way around it, and NFTs are going to increasingly learn that. First probably dealing with their own internal IP, but then also just like trying to build out things together. They're just not going to be able to do it without some form of money catalyzing the whole thing.
Yeah, and obviously on that note, I think Size might have something to say about what's underlying the your ecosystem, which is Magic. Let's see. And if you want, you can actually, if you don't mind, could you actually kind of go into that a little bit? Like what Magic is and how it kind of plays a role in a way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. Just how Magic plays a role in your ecosystem.
Apologies. Didn't know if you were connected or
not. No worries.
So in a way, our metaverse is structured around Magic. So in the Treasureverse, we have this like resource game where you're trying to use your legions and your items to craft instruments to acquire magic, and then magic is used to do things in this world. Like in V2, it'll be how you kind of go outward to explore and gain land. So the further you move away from like the center of the world, the harder it is to sustain life. So it's a utility token in that way, but in a larger sense, like Bridgeworld was just kind of a way to get this idea off the ground, where we're building a whole system of decentralization focused on like the marketplace as a metaverse in a way. So like all of the projects listed on the Treasure marketplace will also be using Magic as like a utility token in their world, like in some meaningful way. If the DAO like decides it's substantial enough, like Magic is powering that narrative. And so all of the value of that world, the community assigns to it. They make friends, maybe they earn money, they get these rare items that they think are neat and they cherish. Like, those things have intrinsic value, and they can back a fungible currency like Magic, particularly because the narrative of the world like requires this resource for the world to continue to exist. So we created this thing that we want to onboard lots of different projects, use it as a way for them to connect, primarily through the marketplace, where we only allow people to transact in Magic because it functions as the monies in these worlds, and it is the way to align like a very large community. Like in the same way that we have most of our backers came from like A Gold and In and Loot, because they were kind of like, they just felt disoriented in the fact that those communities didn't have a way to organize it. We're organizing around this token where people price things in Magic. It's what powers the things that they find interesting and they enjoy. So yeah, the idea is just like money is a cradle that other things can like develop on top of. So we made the money first to see if other builders would join us, and it worked. It's like that is a way to galvanize creativity.
And I think what's so interesting about that is that I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with just NFTs in general, and then how this past year, while a lot of NFT projects have come out, they usually kind of go the route of obviously making the NFTs first, distributing them, etc., and then coming out with their own token. Whatever the project may be, and then somehow integrating the token with the NFT. But it seems like it's kind of like, it's like you mentioned, you guys are kind of going almost like the opposite way around, where you're allowing these projects to build with, and integrate themselves in this token that, is the underlying, money to this entire metaverse, which is Treasure. It's truly interesting to like kind of go through like the economics of this stuff. Like, this really takes tokenomics to another level,
Yeah, I'd love to learn more about, the tokenomics if you guys want to talk about that for a little bit. Like the monetary policy of the token and, how it interacts with, the staking opportunities, etc.
Yeah, Garp, you want to jump in there?
Garp got rugged by Twitter Spaces. Same with End. Both of those two would be awesome to speak about this.
We can come back to it.
I think that Twitter should be running on Magic. Maybe that would fix it. I don't know.
So like in the Treasure world, like this resource game, it becomes increasingly difficult to acquire. So like in V1, so crafting is a normal component in a lot of these kinds of games. And we've built it so instead of just like crafting like a cloak or a potion, you're actually building these harvester parts. So the way it'll work is harvesters are like, for them to be activated, they require a certain number of parts that degrade over time. And then the harvester itself is actually just a mining multiplier. So you're trying to build like increasingly large equipment. And then when we introduce like land with the spatial component, moving this equipment around and stuff, it's basically a strategy of just acquiring more magic as the world is making it progressively more difficult to acquire. And it's neat because we're building like DeFi things now, like the harvester itself. Like you can just take your part and attach it to a random harvester, and then the people who own that thing are the people who put parts on it, and they can set fee structures. So if someone else wants to come along and put their magic in there to increase, then they set the fee. So if you don't agree with what they're doing, you just take your harvester part and go to another one and latch onto that one. So we were trying to create like a farm inside a farm, and just using NFTs in the same way that like governance tokens and fee capture tokens were used in DeFi, but in a different way.
You mentioned harvester and I apologize, but I don't think I'm too familiar with like what you mean when you mention harvester, like, and you kind of like attaching the parts, etc. I mean, is this kind of what we're referring to when we're talking about like kind of DeFi Legos and plugging in different potential projects and having them kind of integrate with Magic, or?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I guess I should. When you talk about it all this time, you just forget like what you're glossing over really quickly or whatever, so you get kind of lazy about that. But so in the Treasureverse, like legions, which are these characters, are mining magic, and then they can use their treasures to craft items. Like the smallest one would be a form of a drill, or maybe they're using it to like create special treasures that can craft other items. But mainly, like the production in this world is geared around making bigger and bigger instruments to go and find magic, and then particularly when we introduce land, like magic will be scattered across this land. semi-randomly. Like, so some mines will have it more, and so there'll be a strategy of like how far across the world do you really want to take like your mining equipment, and like you have to like cooperate with your guild to protect against like the random distribution of this resource that you're trying to acquire. So yeah, itself is, it's just like it's obviously not proof of work. So like I'm sure all the protocol designers in the world just cringe like hearing that. But kind of like at a conceptual level, we want to make this thing that requires like people to devote an increasing amount of resources to getting this thing that becomes more finite and valuable over time, because it's like its utility in a very real sense. Like Bitcoin now has utility as money, and so we wanted to see if we could make the same thing in the metaverse.
You alluding to me being able to spend my magic like a regular everyday type of thing, like getting coffee or something? Is that what we're talking about? Is like magic going to replace Bitcoin as like the money was supposed to be?
Or I mean, like through the marketplace, it is money now,
Of course.
right?
Yeah.
But like with options platforms and Aave, and there's all kinds of things. And then, you know, I kind of think that what's going to end up happening though is that a lot of these DeFi protocols are just going to get recreated by the most successful NFT communities. And so everyone thinks that like, you know, win Aave, but really it's like the DeFi stack is probably just going to get eaten by NFTs or the other way around.
So in a way, like NFTs will be, well, I guess you could say like the future of Treasure, as well as like, you know, I guess the next iteration of NFTs will be DeFi 3.0 essentially.
I kind of think so, where like these brands matter so much to people, the communities, and it's not financial, it's like personal. I mean, this is a significant thing happening in crypto that people can't just wave off and say NFTs are dumb. You know, and there is no stickiness in DeFi, in my opinion, in the same way that an NFT has. Like, I don't wish poorly on a DeFi protocol that I'm going to dump their tokens and go somewhere for higher yield. Just
Well, I'm back.
Like nothing ever happened.
Hello.
Twitter just casually rugging the whole conversation.
I don't know. Twitter couldn't handle the deep alpha. It's okay.
Yeah, I think John's gonna have to relax a little bit there. The alpha.
I swear this happens at every AMA. Every time John drops alpha, it just rugs the whole audio and space.
I think what we can do, and I'm working on to get the rest of the people on here. I think we have most of everyone back up on here. Is we can move on to the next thing, which is Bridgeworld. There we go. Got size up there. But yeah, can we talk a little bit about Bridgeworld and kind of, you know, how everything that's currently out there in terms of NFTs and you know, of course, Magic itself, how Bridgeworld kind of brings it all together and what role it plays in the Treasury ecosystem?
And
Garper, are we all here?
I think we have everyone back.
Scott, do you want to talk about it, and I'll leak some like interesting stuff after you go.
Yep, sure. Can everyone hear me? Sorry, I've been rugged about 4 times
Yeah,
since we started.
Good to go.
Yeah, cool. I think it must be something to do with like Twitter and Australia. Just get rugged all the time. So, you know, Bridgeworld as a kind of a construct is, you know, this kind of main place where a lot of the action happens around kind of the broader Treasureverse. And as we kind of build out this narrative around kind of Magic, Treasure, and kind of Legions, we're kind of folding this into, I guess, the more gamified elements. So we've kind of spoke about this in the past around like when we first started, it was kind of definitely kind of the NFT side, moved into the DeFi side, and now we're moving a lot heavier into the kind of gamified side. And I guess the best way to kind of think of that is kind of gamified DeFi in some ways, but within a construct of NFTs. And kind of John mentioned this really kind of important part, which is this sense of belonging, community, which I think, as we kind of like to say, you can't for community, and just I guess the density of people contributing and kind of building this out has been kind of amazing. And that's kind of what we're trying to do here. So it's nearly kind of setting the center stage, so to speak, for everything to get built out. I think over time, though, and we've kind of discussed this before, will Bridgeworld continue to be the center point forever? Question mark, right? So I think with a lot of this stuff, because it's so nascent, you just don't know. Planning out 12 months, let alone 5 years, etc., is impossible to do. So you've got to nearly take kind of nature, let it take its course. People will, the people kind of who have legions, the Genesis legions, treasures, etc., they will remain extremely important. Magic obviously remains incredibly important. It is the kind of, as we like to call it, the spice of the Treasureverse, so to speak. But in terms of how that gets used, that's really kind of up to the community and just the broader people who want to get plugged in into what we're kind of building. Bridgeworld specifically, in terms of this kind of release, I mean, End will be able to talk to a lot more detail in a sec, but really what we're trying to create here is something around kind of social coordination and kind of the game theory elements of this. And so we've seen a lot of sub-DAOs be created, a lot of guilds kind of organically be created, which is really fascinating to see. Like just strategies getting built out, people taking, certain roles around hoarding certain resources. So we're trying to create this interesting dynamic where people can kind of group together or operate individually to try to basically, capture this kind of economic game, so to speak, over time. But we're also kind of balancing it with this kind of level of accessibility such that people who are new and want to get involved in the world can. And we're doing that through other projects such as, Battlefly, created by one of our, OGs, kind of Ben, which is amazing. But also through some really interesting ideas that kind of End and the team have created, which I'll let kind of End drop that alpha.
Cool. So just extending on that, Bridgeworld basically isn't just like a standalone game. What we're trying to do is provide the composable building blocks that form the basis for decentralized game making. So an example of that is later on in 1.0, sub-DAOs and guilds can like propose side quests as well as crafting recipes. So subject to approval, say the Divine Master DAO can actually offer up some like Divine Masters rewards. Or like create an interesting questing or crafting pathway that incentivize community building. And I guess another really interesting thing that we're going to be integrating in Bridgeworld 1.0 is the idea of gamifying liquidity as a function of gaming events or actual like game integration. So in like the first iteration of this, players will be able to wrap their liquidity tokens into like balancer crystals, and these balancer crystals will be able to be used in like questing protocols. So for example, you'll be able to stake certain number of balancer crystals and the game will automate the questing loop for you. So you won't have to be there clicking buttons every 8 hours, for example. And I guess towards like the end of season 1, we're really interested in trying to gamify or using these like liquidity wrap liquidity tokens as a function of gaming or world events. So without leaking too much, an example of this could be, say, like a dragon comes and attack Bridgeworld, and players would have to like stake the balancer crystals into this draconic altar to like remove the debuff that the dragon may potentially apply in Bridgeworld. So yeah, that's just something, some different ways of thinking about how to gamify liquidity.
Yeah, and just I think extending on that, like I think the whole notion of like a meta events, one of the biggest things that we've seen, this is across all of the projects kind of related to us and kind of working with us community as well, is that people just love kind of working together, creating those little subgroups, communities of interest. It's just the fact that you can kind of hang out with your friends and then start, theory crafting, and just like building this kind of really strong bonds. To me, that's kind of what the metaverse is. It's just like connecting with other people, like digitally, in a way. And so what we're trying to do is create kind of nearly events that can trigger such that you would need to kind of bandy together, whether that's kind of a global event such that, maybe there's some humongo kind of global event that happens within Bridgeworld that people have to band together, like Ed kind of mentioned, which might be a dragon, or it might just be another event such that, the harvester owners now need to kind of fend each other off, and there's this kind of natural tension. We've been working with an amazing economist throughout this who's really been helping us kind of walk through balancing kind of this kind of macro, so to speak, environment such that you don't have this kind of perma advantage from people who just get in there from the start. We want to kind of keep things fresh and vibrant such that people want to continue engaging with us over time. And it is very much a balancing act. It's literally like managing a real economy. So, everything's not going to be perfect at the start, but we will be able to tweak it. And we're taking lots of feedback from the community to do that. So hoping that everyone's going to enjoy it.
The cool thing too is since we get to do this in a fantasy context, like The Economist his mind can run wild on like mechanisms to prevent like one guild from getting too powerful. You're not constrained by anything that you are in real context, but the value creation can be just as real. So it can be inherently money.
I think one thing, I definitely remember you guys mentioning before, at least seeing somewhere, maybe on your Discord or somewhere similar, that you guys had hired an economist to help you kind of, manage, how magic would work, and how like the different, I guess you could say, projects would kind of plug in. And it's definitely something that I think is like underappreciated in crypto. Like having someone that knows, pretty much how tokenomics should work. Because although, like, let's say, you have a ton of games that are out there right now, obviously, that people play all the time. Like gaming and stuff, gaming it on its own is a huge industry. But like, even if you take it to back in the day, I'm sure a lot of you guys have played RuneScape before. Like, like a lot of these economies in game, although it is a game, like they tend like over time just like crash, or inflation goes through the roof. Like, like in a way, you kind of have to have that mindset of developing your game as if it were like a real life economy with people living in it. And I think the metaverse is going to be kind of a representation of that as time goes on.
I think so too. I think in 2 years, it's going to be, all these things are going to seem much more real, like in their market caps and their like how they're being used elsewhere in crypto, and people will say, wow, these things are actually real assets. So one of our longer term goals is we're trying to use treasures as treasures themselves kind of failed as NFTs. I think the initial goal was to have people fractionalize them, and then start trading them so that they would be fungible and have comparative value and stuff. But it just didn't play out like that. But if we develop these universes in parallel and really strive to make not only their metadata pretty uniform, but also just have the DAOs or whoever agreeing like to basic skill upgrade, like frameworks, like how difficult it is, how much work the user has to put in, so that you could say that these metaverses are roughly comparable. And then at that point, if you have an economist who can help you sketch it out, and they're borrowing resources, like the liquidity depth you can get for some of these totally made up resources will be like significant enough where I don't know how anyone could say it's not like a real asset in the way that something else is.
Yeah, and just to iterate on that, I mean, I think where the world is going just more broadly is we're all kind of like digital natives, right? We've kind of been grown up in this. COVID's accelerated digital adoption. People's parents, even their grandparents are kind of living this kind of life, even my own kind of parents as well. We're pretty old. They're kind of getting into it slowly, but like this is less of a this kind of weird magical internet money, and it becomes a lot more real as traditional companies do move into the broader space of quotation mark metaverse. Kind of we're kind of it's native to us. We're kind of building something from the ground up, which I think invariably they're going to try to adopt or co-opt in some way. I think kind of to John's point, we're creating this kind of resource and economic model that people can plug into, and it will evolve over time. Like I think the biggest thing is, we've only been around for 4 or 5 months. It's such a nascent space. Metaverse is a concept. Yes, it's been around probably, a long time, since like Second Life, all that kind of stuff. But, in terms of hitting scale, again, relatively new. So we actually don't know what's going to happen, right? And this is the most fascinating part about it, is that like we can literally take it any direction that the kind of market wants to, and doing it ground up such that anyone can kind of plug in, community can build, law through the BAR program, projects plug in, create you kind of demand supply around the resources that we have. It's really fascinating just to see how it plays out. And so, we're not trying to play God in all this. It's just creating a framework such that people can plug in. I think that's the coolest part. And that's the kind of the strength of the community that we've built.
Yeah, we're trying to do the opposite of like creating quests. Like, how do you make decentralized consensus in metaverse worlds? Well, firstly, you need some form of governance token, but we're also trying to push ourselves to not just fall into this trap of like one token, one vote that created these like plutocracies full of completely apathetic participants. Even the whales themselves were apathetic. So like, how do you use NFTs to create a system of authority, so that like lore can not only be like canonized, but you have like some degree of faith in the people choosing that, and that they aren't like tyrants and it'll continue to decentralize. That's hard, you know, and it's like a kind of a human version of a blockchain in a way.
Sorry. This call is not recorded after they got rugged, so just putting it up there. That
or we got someone on OBS recording it. No worries.
Oh, right. Yeah, amazing, thank you.
Yeah, no, I think that's I completely agree with a lot of things you're saying. I think one interesting thing to think about is also like when you're talking about the financialization of these things, it's so hard to financialize real world assets on a blockchain, right? You're introducing so many different trust assumptions if you're putting a real world asset, you know, with a custodian, et cetera, in order to sort of bring it on chain, that, you know, as these things continue to gain value in the metaverse, you know, using them as collateral, fractionalization, et cetera, just becomes so much more, you know, fluid compared to, you know, sort of, you know, traditional real world, you know, assets. But yeah, I wanted to, I don't know if you guys wanted to continue on that. I wanted to sort of take the conversation somewhere else a little bit. You know, my journey with, you know, with the Treasure ecosystem, you know, obviously we were working with you guys when you guys launched, but I really started paying, you know, a lot more attention when I saw, you know, the communities forming around, you know, small brains, sort of, you know, the I guess the fair launch of it, and, you know, how many people were just really, you know, joining the community, you know, the growth of the treasure marketplace. You know, with that, I think there were days where, you know, there was upwards of almost $10 million in small brains that were traded a few weeks ago. Wanted to know, sort of see, you know, what's your vision for sort of small brains, the treasure marketplace, and, you know, if you want to talk a little bit about Trove, you know, which I understand is going to be your, you know, the marketplace that has like permissionless listings, and you know, yeah, just sort of, you know, how do you guys think about sort of, you know, small brains and treasure versus, you know, the next step, which is, you know, maybe in some ways, you know, more ambitious in terms of marketplace?
Trove team to go.
Yeah, so I guess as far as like Trove goes, I think that at least my thesis for Trove is that the platform should serve its users, right? And the users being the buyers, the sellers, and the collection owners. And also, like, kind of in the spirit of Treasure and like kind of like the spirit of NFTs and where NFTs are going, we want to add like a lot of gamification elements. And so, you know, part of that is kind of like incentivizing collection owners to, I guess, serve their buyers and their holders more. And part of the way to do that is like through the marketplace systems, right? By almost like assigning like, well, by like assigning like levels or some sort of like way to differentiate collections between themselves based off of like users' interactions with those collections. That's, you know, I'm not going to get into too many details. The white paper on Trove will be releasing soon, but that's kind of like my thesis around what marketplace platforms should aim to do. Yeah.
And I think just in general as well, because I don't know. I'm sure everyone in the crowd as well is really very, very excited about Trove. I definitely am. But like, even in terms of Treasure, you know, obviously with Trove coming soon, you know, both Treasure and Trove, sounds really weird saying both of them because they both start with T, are going to be playing completely different roles, because obviously Treasure is going to, from what it sounds like, is going to be a lot more kind of focused on obviously the Treasureverse, and more so maybe on Magic, it sounds like. Can you kind of give us a couple of kind of differentiations there without giving us too much alpha, I guess? I mean, you know, we love alpha, but, you know.
Yeah, for sure. So basically, with the Treasure Marketplace, yeah, it'll be denominated. It is currently dominated in Magic, and it is only sponsors or features projects that are like deeply integrated in the Treasureverse. On the for Trove, initially it will only be like denominated in ETH, and like projects on there won't be like, don't necessarily have to be integrated into the Treasure ecosystem. However, there will be like this graveyard mechanic where, like, you know, any NFTs or things in your collection that you know are kind of embarrassed of or like happen to go to zero, you can like kind of re-roll them, right? And in exchange for re-rolling them, you have a chance at earning some sort of component from the Treasureverse, and that's kind of like will act as like this, or we hope that it kind of acts as like this like revolving door where people will be able to earn this some piece from the Treasure ecosystem, and that will get them give them a reason to look into Treasure more and maybe interact with the ecosystem itself, and maybe stake in Bridgeworld, etc.
Yeah, I think just to kind of extend on that as well, I kind of think of the Treasure Marketplace as nearly kind of the centerpiece that binds all the kind of
Rugged.
Oh,
Mid talk, Rugged. Nice.
It wasn't even Garp this time.
Yeah, I can continue on Garp's thought.
Oh, sorry, it was. He's still here though. Just his mic.
Yeah.
It looks like maybe.
Yeah, hold on. Let's add him on. I think if he's coming back on here. If he gets rugged again, then you can just go. Yeah, we're good. You're good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I think that's that's the 6th time I think I've got rugged. Australian internet is pretty good. Sorry, where was I? Yeah, so the Treasure Marketplace is kind of the centerpiece that binds everything together. And that's why it's dominated by magic. And John made this really strong point: is that because everyone needs to kind of transact, and it is like the currency of account that people kind of refer to, and they need to kind of build within and use as a kind of key aspect within their ecosystems. That's kind of the key thing around, I guess, the Treasure ecosystem, is that we're building out and nearly co-designing quite a lot of the token economics with a lot of the partners. So, a lot of them at the moment are internally seated. So we, think very carefully around how that's kind of designed. And then any, additional ones like Peekaboo, as an example, we work with that team hand in hand to make sure that, whatever is in there in terms of integrating magic is a vital part. And that doesn't necessarily need to mean like magic's the only piece, but it is a really important part. And, John, maybe you can kind of speak to this kind of notion of like magic as debt in some way as a concept.
Yeah, so we're just hyper focused on who is obtaining magic and their alignment with the community. Because if they aren't aligned, it doesn't do us any good to distribute to it. And so, like as Garp was saying, the marketplace is nice because all these projects use magic in a very intrinsic way. You can't really vampire attack the project because not only is the community aligned with magic, they've actually received magic emissions, but also like their world requires magic. So it sort of becomes a world that can continue building like its cumulative value because of the structural integrity of this community and the things they believe in, which is what's collateralizing magic. But then in a larger way, it's kind of like the stablecoin debate where, the most compelling points being made on stablecoins, in my opinion, are the people saying, look, like, don't look at the market cap or the issued supply, like, look at the debt. Is this thing actually being used as debt? And that's like when I see people just like wash trading the crap out of Looks Rare tokens and they're going all over here and there. It's like, this isn't a community. Like, these people aren't aligned. It doesn't matter what its market cap is or the issuance. You have to look in the way it's like ingrained in systems that are like progressively building value. Because that's like currencies that are used to denominate debt have real network effect in a way that like a giant market cap is not network effect.
Yeah, I think kind of building on that as well, like John kind of mentioned this with the original DeFi Summer, it's just mercenaries coming in, they get, the farm, they dump it, and then they leave. Like there's no loyalty, there's no kind of buy-in into what they're actually building. I think kind of we've proven from the start, if not by design, but kind of nearly grassroots, is that people kind of buy in not only to the vision, but to each other, and they're building on each other. You can kind of see that with Smolverse, like there's like genuine kind of love for each other, and just the people kind of building on, and which kind of goes to that whole, composable building blocks, these ideas that kind of get built on multiple times. It just creates so much density and thickness of community. And again, you just can't fork that. Like you can come along, try to come up with a similar idea, but there's no way you can kind of replicate just the passion and just the talent that the community has around this, and underpinning that all being kind of magic. And that's kind of what binds it together. You kind of put those things combined and it creates a very strong and deep moat.
Facts. You can't duplicate Garp. To kind of actually build on top of that a little bit, I want to get into the topic of community. A community is definitely, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, I think about that, that kind of makes Treasure, I think, so crazy. Obviously, I mean, I think there's over 1,000 people in this Twitter space right now, so community includes everyone in this call. Yeah, what is the thought process that you guys had going into kind of building all this when it came to building that community? And I bring it up because you mentioned a little bit ago about people kind of coming in and potentially buying things and kind of just being really toxic in the Discord, etc. And maybe even having people kind of come in, leave instantly, not really having sticky community. How did you guys go about getting this crazy community that you have now? And can you kind of explain, how it came to be?
Yeah, we were reflecting on that recently. I mean, we do have an unbelievable community, and some of it was complete luck. And then to me, there are three things. The first is that Loot was like a ready to go genius blueprint for community building. It just missed the social coordination tool, which was the token. And when we saw Loot, it was like a light bulb. And with the way that the N and A Gold communities were positioned, there was like something. The second is I think Loot was hurt by Dom Hoffman, his fame, because he created a blueprint for a bottom up community building strategy, but he co-founded Vine, or I think Vine, and is a famous person, and you can't really have a cult of personality in a bottom up. And then compare with me, and I had 100 Twitter followers, and I'm older. I'm in my mid 30s. I have a family, and I had basically failed as a crypto builder, and failure brings humility, and so what he had created appealed to me because I wanted to be in a community where I was building, but I wasn't the only one doing it. And, life had given me enough knocks where I think I could, I and the others here functioned as the kind of leadership where a community could grow. And then the third is just it was just a complete accident that, Tay here is the former head of graphics at Netflix, and just volunteering to do work for us until we figured out how to pay him. That's just once in a lifetime luck for all of these talented people to come, and I'm just so happy and blessed by the whole thing. It's amazing.
You know what? And go for it, Stacey. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is a really fundamental aspect of Treasure as a community. I don't think it would exist as it is today without all the grassroots initiatives, about everyone coming together and contributing their ideas, making the connections possible. And like John was saying, bringing in, multiple builders and seeing and making a collective vision, right? Bridgeworld is pretty much community first, and it will continue to be. And it is an amazing thing.
And yeah, I mean, I definitely just wanted to add in there that, I think community is definitely one of the hardest things to acquire in crypto. I think people say TVL, liquidity, and all that stuff is the hardest, but community by far, a good community is really hard to come by. And, I definitely have never seen one, such as, the community behind Treasureverse. Because in a way, it's it's not only one big community. I almost see it as you have this huge amount of sub communities within each other, right? I mean, obviously you have the small brains, the small bodies or swole bodies, legions, it's et cetera. It's a whole bunch of a whole bunch of communities that are able to interact with each other. It's like communityception in a way.
Yeah, it's been amazing. I mean, there really are I just keep talking, and then I'm saying oh, we have all these wonderful people, but it's just me talking. But there are probably 20 people who they contribute something so unique that the project couldn't have scaled without them. Garp, I think, was the first community member to come in, but all the tokenomics he came up with, we had a $300,000 market cap, and we're cratering fast. And he came in and was End came in with the game design. Cheese, who's not here, he was our front end designer, but he's an artist. I mean, the Treasure marketplace is just this. It's gorgeous, and when we saw what he and Wise had made, we're why don't we just make a generalized marketplace? This is better than OpenSea. So every single person who came brought some skill set where we just started scaling faster and faster, and
It's unbelievable, really.
Shots fired there. Shots fired.
Wait, who was the shot against?
Pilot on OpenSea, I see.
Oh, our site looks better than OpenSea. I'm open about that. The Treasure Marketplace looks amazing. That's all cheese. It's a good site.
Yeah, Cheese is a legend. I still remember I randomly like cold DM'd him after he followed me. He was like one of the first people to follow me from like CT, I guess, or from Treasure. Anyways, I just messaged him. I was like, hey, I see that you're a front-end dev. Do you want to work with us? And yeah, the rest is history.
It's honestly so amazing. Again, like, you know, what having like a great community can do, and like what just like those small little things, like just someone wanting to start something on the side, whether it be, you know, like, you know, they're working full time somewhere else and they want to kind of start working on Magic or Treasure, I should say, you know, as like a side thing, and then all of a sudden it becomes their main thing, and then before you know it, it's like this huge, you know, like crazy project. It's really cool to kind of like hear the story and like hear like, you know, you guys' experience building this entire thing. And obviously I'm sure it's going to get even crazier as time goes on, you know, with all the new things you guys have coming out.
Yeah. Wait, you go, John.
No, you go.
I was going to say, like on the point of kind of OpenSea, and you know, just with the marketplaces coming out, I think, you know, having it built by the community, and you know, being very DAO oriented, we want the community and obviously the DAO holders to kind of benefit in the growth of the ecosystem. So you will start to see this a little bit of an alpha drop, some, you know, growth benefits going back to kind of stakers, right? So Magic stakers will be definitely kind of rewarded as the ecosystem grows. And that is directly related to, you know, nearly the equivalent of GDP, so to speak, through kind of marketplace.
Oh my God! Can someone bring up the Magic chart, please? I'm like afraid people are going to start bumping up the price.
Did it go to zero? What's the?
No.
I hope it drops. I need to load my bags up.
Way too much alpha. To kind of end off this community piece here, I kind of wanted to kind of throw a bone to one of the community projects. Sorry, one of the projects that came out of the Treasure community. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, if I'm off base here. But Toadstoolz, which hasn't come out yet, but seems to be like I mean, I think they have over 36,000 people in their Discord. Can you guys like? I could be wrong. I don't think you guys are working on Toadstoolz per se. I think, from what I understand, it's a community. But like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, you know, like other projects gaining crazy amounts of engagement and whatnot before they even launch.
I mean, I can speak to Toadstoolz. I'm probably the closest to that team from the kind of the council. Yeah, look, I think just like with any of these community projects, I think one of the key things that they did is they worked with us. You know, they kind of went to us and say, hey, how can we kind of build this together, kind of wrap into your law, kind of wrap into your kind of economic construct. And they've done it really well. And it's like a hats off to that team in particular. I think they've done a phenomenal job. Like when they started, I think Treasure only had about 6,000 in its Discord. I think we came off the 721 kind of AMA, where it kind of grew from like, you know, a couple of people to 500, but now it's the biggest out of all of them, and it's quite a different kind of vibe. I love kind of going in there and just kind of hanging out. It's kind of more of kind of family friendly, but they're usually just talking about like life and stuff that they're eating, or just, you know, in real life stuff. And it's just awesome to see that people just kind of vibing together. And I think, you know, from a community project, that's kind of what you want to see. And people, I know there's a lot of people who get kind of salty from the challenges because they are hard. Some of them are quite hard, and there's not a lot of spots, but we get a lot of feedback, and I hear this directly from the team, that people really enjoy it, and they're people creating groups to do them. And that's like really awesome to see. Like, you're actually bonding with other people. That's kind of ultimately what we're trying to do. And kind of the same thing. I mean, John, you can speak more to the Smols, but kind of same thing with Smols as well, right? It's just like this huge community of interest, just vibing together, galvanizing.
Oh no. Again.
Boom.
There she goes.
Again.
You know, John, I don't know if you were going to pick up where he left off. I know he's better kick it over to you, but yeah, no, it's you know, especially those little croaky challenges. I mean, I love doing them personally. I mean, I haven't won one yet, you know, but still, they're still fun. You know, I think.
Oh, for like the Smols whitelist or which,
So
Thanks for Toadstoolz, right?
for Toadstoolz, yeah. It's funny. Like I think the Smols whitelist was like you had to go ahead and make your own small, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we just stole that from Mushrooms. People were like, "Oh, good job on whitelist." It's like I just did. We had to think of a thing to do really fast, and Olympus did that like earlier in the day. Great project, great people. Shout out to them. I love that community.
All right, I think we're also getting Garp back here in a sec. We can kind of see what happens there. But I do want to be cognizant of y'all's time as well. It looks like we kind of are hitting the hour mark here. Did you guys want to, after Garp finishes his thoughts, kind of throw some questions to the community, or do you guys want to wrap it up soon?
Yeah, I think we can take a few questions from the community.
Awesome.
And then can drop some alpha at the end, and yeah.
More alpha? Oh,
Yeah.
great. Okay.
Also, maybe give a shout out to the DGen Moon Boys channel, as always.
Yeah, let's go DJ Moon Boys. That's my favorite channel. I am always in there.
All right. Yeah, I think Garp's getting continuously rugged. If there is, oh, here we go. Okay, looks like we're getting ended back on. Yeah, I mean, if you want, we can start picking people from the crowd. Want just let me know who you guys think I should pick, and I'll bring them up.
I just want to give like a big shout out to like Risotto, Stu, Timo, and Commonopoly who helped us with like the game guide, with the design and the art, as well as all your Kurt, and Peter and all of the core contributors. So thank you. So yeah, I hope you guys will enjoy it. It'll be launching right after this.
Did you guys hear that in the back? Did you hear that? White paper dropping after this space. What?
Oh my lord!
It's like 41 pages, so like apologies in advance.
40. I don't think I've read. I haven't read that many pages since I graduated college. So that's pretty crazy. By the way, I think we just brought up VGMV. If you want, you can go ahead and unmute and speak your piece.
Hey there, guys. Thanks for having me up. I appreciate you guys. One of my biggest questions was for the Arbitrum team. So I heard that there was a plan to reduce the possible fee cost even further. Could you guys expand on that just a little bit?
There you go. AJ, I think if you want.
Yeah, Steven, do you want to take that one, or I can take it?
Or Steven?
You want to take it, AJ?
Yeah, sure. Hey, everyone. So, yeah, we had some optimizations on fees that went into effect last week, and then we're working on continuing to optimize fees further. We've got something that we're going to be rolling out, probably in the next couple of days that will meaningfully, reduce certain components of the fees. Fees on Arbitrum are a function of a number of different things. The majority of it is sort of Ethereum mainnet costs, like what we post in batches to the Ethereum, miners. We have some there's fixed costs there that we're able to reduce pretty meaningfully. I think we're going to see, and then also on the storage side, we're going to be seeing some reduction in storage costs. I don't want to give a precise number, but I think it's going to be pretty meaningful over the next week or so.
Let's not forget about Nitro coming up.
Oh yeah, that's in the short term. And then when Arbitrum Nitro comes out, which is the next iteration of the Arbitrum protocol, it's going to be a seamless upgrade. When that comes out, you're going to see, Harry, our CTO, was talking the other day. He's hoping for about a 50% cost reduction as well. So that's a little further out. But in the more immediate term, the next week or so, I think you're going to see some pretty meaningful reductions to sort of fixed overhead costs and storage costs in the protocol.
Thank you guys for having me up, man. I appreciate the answer. That's really cool. I'll step down now so you guys can bring some more up. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm going to bring Garp back up here. I'll go ahead and add Sony. Hopefully they connect pretty soon. There you go. Sonny, you can go ahead and unmute your mic, by the way.
Oh, hey guys, good morning. Just want to say thank you for bringing up here and thank you for the space, the community, and the team on both sides of Arbitrum and TreasureDAO. One question I want to ask the Arbitrum team. I don't know. I don't want to ask this question at the same time I do. After the event that happened earlier, like when the sequencer went down, I think that people were saying that it wouldn't have happened if Arbitrum had their own token, and people were speculating that some information was deleted from the website about a token. Can you guys give any information about if you guys are going to release something like that?
Yeah, so I think the people who are saying that the sequencer wouldn't have gone down because of a token we're just joking. It's kind of like a meme how like if you have a token it could save everything. It was a hardware DevOps thing that happened that was obviously nothing related to a token. On a token, no comment for that for now. But the DevOps issue has nothing to do with a token.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Shout out to the Moon Boys, DJ's chat. I love you guys. TreasureDAO, Arbitrum. Thank you guys so much.
Love your small, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I love your small.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Thank you so much, Sonny. All right. Who else should we bring on here? We got a lot of people requesting. Dude, when do you guys want to just call out who I should bring up? Because I'm honestly just picking like whoever has the coolest small, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
Fair enough. All right. Let me get Big Bull Ape over here. Had been asking to join. See here. AG, I see you raising your hand. I'll get you next. All right. Big Bull, you should be good to go.
Hey, thanks for bringing me up. I just had a can you guys hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Cool. I just had a quick question to the TreasureDAO team about more on like the small world, like metaverse kind of thing. Will you guys be integrating DeFi products, if you can say, into like the metaverse small world as well as the games, or will it just be the games? Thank you.
Yeah. We're I'm super optimistic about that. We just started, but there's a product that someone built on top of Smolverse, the small metaverse. It's hilarious, and it's really thought provoking. They're gonna launch their V1 like next week, maybe. But it's a DeFi protocol, and beyond that, I've been like kicking around this thesis that maybe like NFT communities become the service providers. I mentioned earlier, like it eats the DeFi stack, but I mean, why can't these things like a Bored Ape Yacht Club eventually be taking over like distribution for companies? In the same way that like a DeFi protocol doesn't have stickiness, I don't think a traditional company does versus an NFT community. So they came up with this thing that's like it's a super interesting. I can't say anything more, but yeah, it's like a kind of protocol that's going to be on top of Smols, but I really think it could like start supplanting not just like DeFi, but also like real world things. But we'll see.
Cool. Thanks, man. I'll jump down. Thanks, guys.
Small. All right, AG.
Hi, guys. Firstly, a hearty congratulations. I'm sure it takes a lot of enthusiasm, passion to pull off something like this. And my question is very basic. First question is, I want to know the whole vision of this entire project, because there are so many DAOs are happening. This is a year of DAO. I have been working with some, collaborating with some, speaking with some, trying to find my way in it. But I'm very curious, the vision, because I think that's where the whole thing falls in place. And what motivated you to come up with this Treasure DAO? Thank you.
I think what it's distilled into in the simplest way is if someone truly believes in NFTs and the power of an NFT community, that can not only like back that specific thing, but there is so much aggregated value there that it could back like a fungible currency that functions exactly like money, even though all the constituent parts are totally made up and are just held together by the community's imagination. So like what happens if we try and stick all these things together and use them as like the pillars of monies and social organizations? And that all just started by like inverting loot and being like coming from DeFi, and everyone's like, oh, we'll build a game around adventure gear, and thinking, there's no mechanism for consensus there. You have to start with a financial primitive. And I think that thesis is right.
Thank you so much. And one last question, just out of curiosity, because it is very interesting. I have joined your Discord today morning, and incidentally, today evening, the session is happening. It's like 6 a.m. for me right now. And when did this whole thing started? How long it took you guys to build it up? Because I see a lot of magic happening with the team members coming together.
Yeah, John and I launched Treasure in it was September, right? John, of last year.
Yeah.
Whoa, that's a lot of ground covered. 3 kudos to you guys.
These
Amazing,
guys have been
amazing.
killing it.
I swear they've been killing it. Hunter, you said it right.
There you go. AG, thank you for your questions, man.
Thank you so much. I'll step down. Thank
you. Did you guys want to bring on a couple more people, or you want to kind of cut it off here?
I personally have to get going, but if the rest of the team wants to keep going, it's fine.
I've got a few more minutes, but
sure.
Whatever y'all want to do.
Let's take 1 or 2 more.
All right. I'm going to bring on Mechanic and Billy because they were both waiting. All right. Arcanic,
Yo, what's up, guys? First of all, thank you guys so much for hosting this amazing space. It's been great, very insightful to hear both sides of what you guys are doing, and you guys know I'm forever grateful for all the stuff that you're building, and I'm very excited to be a part of it. My question is mainly to the Arbitrum team, and this is more so just a general question, I would say, just to get some perspective, and I'm sure to a certain extent a lot of us are also wondering the same thing. In the bigger scheme of things, there's different L2 layers that exist, and I want to kind of gauge your perspective on how you think overall the onboarding process will be to L2s, because to a certain level it's inevitable, but just from your guys' experience, I just want to know what you think about more people just shifting towards L2 solutions and so on.
I can take this one if nobody else wants to. The way we think about it is really making it as seamless as possible, right? So like, what's interesting is when we launched, about 4 months ago, I would say 100% of people were coming over the Arbitrum bridge from Ethereum mainnet. If you fast forwarded like a month after that, it was probably 80%. Now it's probably 50% because we have all these bridges from other protocols. We have centralized exchanges like Binance until you guys all drained their wallet. I don't know if you guys saw that, but their wallet got drained, so they got to load up. Centralized exchanges, fiat on protocol bridges from other L1 and L2 environments, all coming to Arbitrum, and like the onboarding process is. It's different than I would have imagined. It's not like an L1 migration anymore. It's a migration from alternative environments, and having the least friction to get into Arbitrum is critical. I think they're like we're not a world where like one roll-up chain or one layer one chain is going to dominate, but there is this notion that being able to migrate into Arbitrum, into a secure Ethereum environment where you can sort of leverage the Ethereum security while also taking advantage of faster confirmation times and cheaper fees is pretty critical. We've seen, I think, amazing adoption. There's about $4 billion in assets that have been bridged into the system just over the Arbitrum mainnet bridge. Forget maybe it's forget alternative bridges, and it's amazing. We're still in beta. It's still early days, but there's this. Our goal is to make the onboarding process for end users as frictionless as possible, and that's working with the centralized exchanges and other on ramps, and then also leveraging communities. So that we work with different projects that are building on Arbitrum. If they need any infrastructure to support their advancement, whether that be relationships with centralized exchanges for their tokens, whether that be relationships with Oracle services or anybody else in the ecosystem to leverage their success. Because ultimately this is about communities, right? It's not about the technology. I think that's the theme of this conversation. So much of this is about communities and having the ability for communities to be able to grow and for us to do everything that we can. That's how we view sort of migration of people into the ecosystem in a meaningfully sustainable way. I don't know if that answers your question, but a little bit of a ramble.
No, that was perfect, man. I appreciate that. Perfect response. Much love, man. I'll step down. Thank you guys so much.
All right. And thank you, Organic. Great small, by the way. And for the last question, if we can keep it, I guess, more treasure focused, probably preferable. Billy, I know we have you on here right now. What do you got?
Hey guys, honestly, I don't have any question. Just really wanted to come here and show some gratitude for you. You really are changing lives. Financially speaking, you personally really helped me a lot. I've been staking since day one and not planning to sell, but having this sort of reward, it's really, really helpful and really changing my perspective and giving me really a push to push more and learn more. So just really grateful for what you did, Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. I mean, it really is a mutual thing. It sounds corny, but this has been one of the biggest blessings of my life. Not only as a builder for a community to show up and to get to just create stuff with talented people and then see other people interpret it and the friendships that come out of it. But it's been amazing. We're so thankful to the community for like I said earlier, I didn't really have any Twitter followers, and that's huge in crypto Twitter. You have to have a following, and I'll be honest, some people that I think are pretty dumb and don't have good ideas, just use their social networks, and the longer you're here, that's frustrating. But we didn't give NFTs to influencers. We just had an organic community come, and then all of these people are now coming in a position of authority, and so we just try to do it we're just going to be positive, try and be nice, and just creative, and it worked, and it makes me really happy.
Awesome. Billy, of course, thank you for your wonderful comments. And I'll get you off there. Before we do end off today, you guys had mentioned, one of you guys in the team had mentioned that you wanted to give some alpha. Is that true?
Yeah, the alpha being that the white paper is going to drop after the space. If you're hungry for more alpha, I think something that was talked about earlier was the kind of the continuation or the pipeline of how community can build with Treasure. And like Garp was saying earlier, it's best if you reach out to us and you build along with us rather than trying something nefarious or whatever. But on that point, one of the big projects that I think is breaking grounds with that is Battlefly, because that came from a Treasure OG, and they're just incorporating magic, working with us, building the whole game on top of that. And yeah, I think that's going to be huge. Another one is of course Peekaboo, which is part of the first cohort of our launch pad or magic pad. And yeah, I don't know. It's all of it's just we're trying to make an ecosystem, right, that really just funnels into mutually beneficial ways. So getting listed on Trove, for example, and then navigating your way into kind of the core treasure incentives to be incorporated more into the main treasure marketplace. All those are being worked on, right? This whole process. So the ecosystem is going to continue to grow. Value is going to be added for new people and the people who are already in the ecosystem. Yeah. I don't know. It's just like I wouldn't fade the Treasureverse.
Oof. Dude, trying to fade Treasure or Arbitrum. Good luck with that, buddy. Like, all right. Well, obviously, I'm sure all of you guys are already in a Treasure's Discord, or whether it be Treasure Discord, Small Brains Discord. If you do want to get involved with the community, I'm sure that's the best place to start. And yeah, thank you guys so much for making some time today to make this AMA.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Arbitrum. All right, see y'all.
Yeah,
See
thank you all. White paper should be soon. It's uploading now.
Awesome.
Let's go.
Let's go.
No one's gonna say it. All right, I'll say it. GM.
GN.